Now that I'm back from my through hike of the Colorado Trail, I wanted to share with you some gear failures and also the winners, the things that I really, really liked. I'm not going to go through my entire gear list. You can see it up here if you haven't actually already watched that video. I've got some company here. There were definitely some things that did not fare so well on the Colorado Trail. Some of that gear really took a beating. The trail was very, very hard on my gear. In fact, I have never had that many things go wrong, although thankfully most of the problems were not catastrophic. It's just gear that failed for one reason or another that basically just wore out. My rain pants are something that I'm in love with, and I'm very sad that I'm going to have to let them go because I wore them a lot as wind pants as well. It certainly did rain plenty on the Colorado Trail, but these were also great on cold mornings to put on an extra layer and keep the wind off my legs. When I took them off one day, I noticed that they were kind of coming apart, starting to delaminate a little bit down in the crotch area. It's not so bad that I can't continue to wear these, but I do need to be thinking about finding a replacement pair of lightweight rain pants, and unfortunately Patagonia doesn't make these anymore, which makes me really sad. I wish they'd bring them back, but I'm gonna have to try another brand next time around. I tried a new rain jacket on this hike from Lightheart Gear. I went with an impermeable one this year because I had so many problems with my past helium-2 jackets. I tried ponchos, I tried all kinds of things, and so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get a new rain jacket this year. Overall, it was a good rain jacket, but not too long after I started hiking, I noticed that the side seam down at the bottom, right under where the tag was sewn in, the seam had come apart from where the tag was down to the hem. I did contact them after I got back and told them what happened, sent them a picture, and they sent me a return label so that I could ship that off to them and have them repair it. So I'm happy with the customer service so far from Lightheart Gear. They've been great to work with. I wish that hadn't happened, but at the same time, it didn't affect the functionality of the rain jacket that much on the trail, so I was able to use it. And I didn't have to stop and get a new rain jacket in the middle of the hike. Two things that surprised me were socks. My Smartwool socks that I love, they're low cut. I think they're the PhD run with some padding. They're awesome for me, and I wear them over my 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐫 sock liners. The 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐫 liners got holes. My right foot first and then my left foot both got holes in the bottom of the feet. They just wore out. And they were not brand new when I started. That may have contributed to the fact that they wore out, but at the same time, I've used 𝐒𝐮𝐸𝐫 liners for years, and this is the first time I've actually had a pair get a hole in them. And unfortunately, also because it was towards the end of the trail, I couldn't find a replacement pair, so I had to keep wearing the ones I had. The main benefit of those is that they're toe socks, and they keep your toes separated and also reduce friction between your shoe and your sock. It was okay to keep wearing them, although I wouldn't have wanted to do that for more than a week or so. The Smartwool socks also got a hole, and that was in the heel. And again, I've never had my Smartwool socks wear out. When I found the hole in the Smartwool socks, I was just getting ready to go into Leadville. So I checked the outfitter there, and they didn't carry those socks, and I ended up picking up a pair of Darn Toughs, which I felt like were kind of too hot after I'd hiked in them for a few days. So I switched them out with a pair from home, an older pair of Smartwools that carried me through the rest of the trail, and that worked out fine. So you might think of socks as sort of a consumable, which I guess they are, but at the same time, you don't want to have sock failures when you're out in the middle of the wilderness. If that could cause blisters that could negatively impact the success of your hike. Word to the wise, start with new or newer socks, and you should be in better shape than I was at the end of the trail. My smelly-proof bags were something that I have bought recently. You can get them on Amazon, and they're similar to the Locksack or the OpSack, the odor-proof bag. These were good, and I found that they're more durable than the Locksack. The continuous use of opening and closing those multiple times a day, they did wear out. So I would consider those a replaceable item and maybe have some extra ones sent to you every few weeks if that's what you're using in your food bag. I wish they would have lasted longer. I wish I didn't have to replace them as often because they are expensive, but the seams on those did fail. Another gear failure that I had was the bag that I use for my Katadyn Be-Free filter. This is something, I have no idea how old that bag is because actually when I started the PCT last year, I bought just the filter. You can buy just a replacement filter. And I had planned on using it with my 𝐾NOC bag, my 2-liter 𝐾NOC bag. Unfortunately, I was having some trouble just with the pressure and getting the water to filter. And so a trail angel on the PCT noticed this, and he's like, here, take this bag. He pulled it out of a hiker box, and it was just a 1 liter bag that comes with a beef-free filter. That developed a hole in the seam not too long into my hike. I think it was maybe just like 2 weeks in. That's not something that you can patch, and so I did order a replacement, and unfortunately, Cat9 does not sell just the bag, so I had to buy a new filter and a bag. It was a little bit more expensive than I wanted, but at the same time, it doesn't hurt to have an extra filter. That filter bag that failed probably had a lot of miles on it. I know I put a decent amount of miles on it, so it's not surprised that eventually it would wear out, but hopefully the new one that I have will last even longer. My La Sportiva trail runners, I love those. I discovered them towards the end of my Appalachian Trail through hike, and they have been great shoes for me. I think I'm on my maybe 6th pair. I bought a new pair right before the Colorado Trail. Those shoes took a beating. The Colorado Trail has so many rocks and areas where the trail is just dry scree that you're sliding on, and lots of places where you've got your feet at funny angles. And I just found that those shoes, more than any other pair of the Akashas that I've had, got beat up. The lining started to get shredded around my heels and the sides, and there were places where I had chunks out of the sole and that sort of thing. They worked just fine. They got me through the trail. I did not lose any of the cushioning, so they felt like they were performing pretty well. The Colorado Trail is just under 500 miles, so that's about the life of a pair of trail runners to begin with. And finally, my sun gloves. They're from Outdoor Research. They're very lightweight, and I wore them just about every day because you can see my hands. I've got 80-year-old hands. I've got a lot of sun damage from growing up in Florida as a kid and not wearing sunscreen. So I wanted to at least protect my hands now. I guess it was just 2 or 3 days before the end of the hike, I looked down, and the one on my left hand, the seam right here, had come apart and it was coming off. So that would have been a bigger issue again if it had happened earlier. They did come from REI, and so I was able to return them because they shouldn't have worn out that quickly. Yeah, it was pretty unfortunate. I was kind of disappointed that that happened. Now, I'd just like to take a minute to point out that a lot of folks watching are not subscribers to this channel. If you're not subscribed, I really appreciate it if you could take a minute just to hit that button. If you are already subscribed and you can tell a friend, I really appreciate it because it helps my channel grow. And I am right now just below 4,000. I would love to get to 5,000 or maybe even 10,000 by the end of the year. Would I buy it again? As part of this gear review, I think it's important to let you know items that I have that I would buy again or that I would not buy again. Here are the big ones. My Durston X-Mid Pro Dyneema tent. This is the first long trail that I've used it on. I just got it in January and I've taken it out for some shorter hikes. I definitely had some concerns about that tent. It did its job. It got me through the hike, which is great, but yeah, I just have some concerns, and I'm actually going to do a full-fledged review video on that so you can see all of my thoughts about the design of that tent, but I'm not sure that I would buy it again. It's expensive. It was $600. I might consider, if I had to replace it, going with a different brand or even going back to the original X-Mid one-person tent. I borrowed that from a friend to use on the PCT last year, and I did really like that particular tent. So that's part of the reason I was so excited to get the X-Mid Pro, because I thought it would be very similar. But some of the changes they made, I think were just maybe didn't work out the way Durston intended. So I don't think I would buy it again. Right now, if I had to make the decision today, I would not buy it again. My Astroman sun hoodie, which is from Outdoor Research, I loved that thing. That's the purple shirt that I wore just about every single day on my hike. And it was an upgrade from the Outdoor Research Echo sun hoodie, which I felt like it's a much closer fit, and it's tended to feel kind of sticky, and I would get very hot in the Echo. The Astroman, because it's a tighter weave, it's got some stretch to it, but it was a lot cooler. I felt like it didn't stick to my body. It worked great for wind as well. On cold mornings, I could put it on just sort of as my top layer and I'd stay warm. So I really, really liked that. It did a great job of keeping the sun off me. The only criticism I have is when I put the hood up, the wind would blow it off unless I zipped it all the way up under my chin. But that's really the only complaint I have. I love the fact that it had a pocket on the side, which I didn't think would matter to me, but it did come in handy sometimes. And it was just a really good all-around sun shirt, lightweight, practical, didn't show much wear at all. So it was a great sun shirt, and I highly recommend it. I would absolutely buy that one again. One thing that I changed out during the hike was my pillow. When I laid my face on my pillow, even if I had a pillowcase on, I was getting real sweaty at night, and I did not enjoy that feeling at all. I went on Amazon and I ordered a replacement, the THRU-HIKE pillow that has the removable cover. You can wash the cover by hand, and then it's got a typical kind of air bladder on the inside. So you just take off the cover, wash it, and put it back on. It was, for the price, a really good pillow. I was happy with it. Having that padded side of the pillow cover made a world of difference in my sleep quality. And it also has a little strap on the back, which is kind of cool, because then if you want to strap it down to your pad, you can. I really did enjoy having the pillow with a cover that was much more comfortable to sleep on. And even though it's kind of a budget purchase, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with inexpensive gear that's high quality. And I would definitely buy it again. The next thing is my REI rain mitts. And they're mittens, not gloves. So they're designed to keep your hands dry when it is raining. And there were a few kind of cold days where I thought, let me pull those out and try them. And I just found that they weren't that comfortable. It's hard when you've got mittens on your hands and all you can do is this. You know, if you want to grab a piece of gear, get your phone, something like that, then you're having to take off a rain mitt. And it's awkward, I guess is the best way to put it. So I ended up using my sun gloves instead in the rain. They still kept my hands warm, even though the fingers cut off about here. Tips of my fingers might get a little bit cold. But I do have Renaults, and that sometimes causes you to sort of lose sensation in your fingers, and I didn't have that problem at all with those sun gloves on. They kept my hands warm enough. They, I think, were much better than actually the rain mitts. So even though my hands were wet, I was warm. The rain mitts kept me dry, but just weren't really practical for this type of hike. I would not buy the REI rain mitts again. Now, let me talk about some top performers, 5-star backpacking gear, if you will. And a lot of these things are things that I've had for a while. So my Superior Wilderness Designs backpack, the Superior 40, has performed really, really well. I don't have any issues with it. I mean, it gets dirty, but you can wash it, right? And it's not showing any wear after, I don't know how many years I've had it, 4 years or so. Super comfortable. Just love this backpack. And I was thinking about the other day, I thought when the day comes when it does get worn out, I'm going to be a really sad girl. It'll be hard for me to find a pack to replace it. My trekking poles, you may be aware that I lost one when I fell down the snow slope, so I had to replace that. I ordered a new pair of the Cascade Mountain Tech carbon fiber poles. So that makes my third pair that I have. Otherwise, I probably only have 2 pairs because the first pair has lasted for years and years. And I actually just replaced them with a newer pair before I went on the PCT because the little dial on the side for the clip was starting to crack a little bit with age. Those are amazing trekking poles. And it was funny because as I ran into people on the trail who had the same pole, I would ask them, you know, what do you think about this? And everybody was like, these are the best. And you can buy them at Costco, which is cool. And they're just so affordable. After having worked at REI and selling some of the high-end trekking poles that often broke and came back, I would recommend the Cascade Mountain Tech hands down over some of the other poles that cost 2 or 3 times as much. I have the ones with the cork handles, and then they've got foam down below. They collapse so you can travel with them. And yeah, they're just great. That's the second piece of gear that I would give a 5-star award to. My Gossamer Gear umbrella is not an expensive umbrella, and it spent most of its time in my pack, which is just fine because I was really glad to have it on the super, super hot days walking through the burn areas where I needed extra shade. It came in handy if it was just a light rain and I didn't want to pull my rain gear out. And it was also a good thing to have when you're above tree line and you might need a little extra privacy if you've got to go into the woods to do your thing. It actually serves 3 purposes, and that's part of what earns it a 5-star award, as well as the fact that it is really light and very durable and not too expensive. Next on my list for 5-star backpacking gear is my Thermarest X-Therm sleeping pad. Now, a lot of people complain that the Thermarest pads are crinkly, which the basic ones are, especially when they're new. A lot of people complain that they are delicate. This pad is the bomb. It's the one that's got the most insulation, so it's very warm. And I was super comfortable on it. And even on the warmer nights, it didn't make me hot, but it did protect me when the ground was cold from any air that might be coming up through the ground. So I slept great on that. When I was on a not ideal campsite where maybe it was a little bit rocky or maybe kind of bumpy, the pad kind of made all that disappear, and so I didn't have any trouble sleeping, which I really, really appreciated. The only complaint, it takes a while to collapse it in the mornings. I would normally roll it twice before I packed it in my pack, just to make sure that all the air was out and it was as compact as it could be. But that's kind of a minor thing. It's like an extra, I don't know, 30 seconds in the morning. I definitely would recommend that pad. It's a little bit heavier, but at the same time, if you're going to be in an area where you know you're going to have some colder nights, or you're on a shoulder season where the ground is cold, this would be a great thing to add to your kit. On top of the pad, I would use a Rab silk liner. I did make a couple of modifications to it so that it would stay on my pad. I added a little bit of elastic cord and a drawstring at the foot so I could just sort of loop it over the foot of my pad. And I did the same thing up at the top. Because it's pretty wide, it would occasionally come off my pad. So I used a piece of just real thin shock cord with some toggles on the end, and so I could tie it down at the top, and with the other elastic at the foot, it would stay on my pad at night, and I didn't have any problems with it coming off as I roll around, because I'm a really active sleeper. So overall it was great, and I really, really liked the fact that it added a few degrees of warmth, and it also kind of cut any draft. So I tie my quilt down, if air comes up underneath, then that extra layer of the silk liner made me stay nice and warm. So that's definitely worth the weight to carry, particularly if you're in an area where it's going to be colder at night. And then finally, on the 5-star award list, I would say my 𝐒𝐻 earned one. It did great on the trail. I did not have any issues with bears or critters getting into my food. And I used that in combination with a smelly-proof bag, so there was nothing really to smell to attract a bear to be curious about what was in my bag. The one catch is that you do have to make sure that you use it properly, that you follow the directions for how it should be closed up and how it should be hung. I think that I'll get many more years out of using the 𝐒𝐻 when it's appropriate. When I can get away with a regular bear bag and a bear hang, then I would do that because it's lighter. But if I need more secure bear storage, then I would definitely go with the 𝐒𝐻, unless I'm in an area where a bear canister is required. Finally, I want to share some big winners for longevity and durability. Some of these things have been with me for years. And I think that's pretty amazing, because backpacking gear is such an investment. When you're getting ready to do a thru hike on a long trail, if you don't have the gear and you have to go buy it, you could be out well over $1,000 if you're trying to buy lightweight gear. Now, you can buy gear for a lot less than that, but good quality backpacking gear is expensive. And I did spend some money over the years building out my backpacking kit. And so I'm really happy when I can report that some of those things have just held up and been really solid over the years. My THRU-HIKE titanium pot and my spoon, they're just as good as they were the day I bought them. There are no dents, they have not broken, they're not scratched up, they're not wearing out. You know, those are things that I'm glad that I spent the money on, and they're serving me very well, and I am confident they'll serve me for quite a long time to come. Also in my cook system, my MSR pocket rocket stove, I bought that while I was on the Appalachian Trail, because the one I started with just pooped out on me. It wasn't working. So I got the MSR, and it works great. I don't have any problems with it, and I would recommend it again. It's definitely stood the test of time. My underground quilt I also bought for the Appalachian Trail, so a good 5 years in, it's still holding up really well. Every now and then, like a little piece of down will come through, and I think there's one spot where I somehow managed to get a hole in it. It is warm and comfortable, lightweight. It's everything I would want a quilt to be, and I'm irrationally in love with that. It's been one of my favorite pieces of gear. And then finally, my Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer jacket that I bought before the Appalachian Trail. And I guess I should point out that typically I only use these items for backpacking. So I don't wear my puffy just running around town. I have other jackets that I'll wear for that. So I keep my puffy for backpacking, and I treat it well, and it is holding up very, very well. I did have a couple spots where once I brushed up against my stove, so I had to patch a little hole on the wrist, and I got hit by a spark in the head on the hood and had to patch that. So it looks a little weathered, but it is still as warm as it was the day that I bought it. And that just gets an award for durability as well. Overall, my gear did really well, and I'm really happy with that. If you have any questions about any of my gear, please feel free to drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. I try to answer as many comments as I can. Of course, I read all of them, so please take a moment to do that. I appreciate it. I love hearing back from you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next video. If you're not sure what to watch next, check out this video and please take a minute to subscribe and help my channel grow.